Hey guys, you're here at the Quicksand Rigs, and today we're going to be talking about 5 things Ashes of Creation should take from Final Fantasy XIV. So without further ado, let's sink in. Number 1, returning to the Trinity. It's almost a thing of the past that a video game requires predefined roles in order to complete its content. Games like Elder Scrolls Online and Guild Wars 2 have almost forgone this idea completely, allowing everyone to be a jack of all trades, or to solo the majority parts of the game. Final Fantasy XIV creates content that's difficult enough to require that you specialize in a certain role, being tank, DPS, or healer, and to become good at that role. While the early game and the early dungeons ease you into it, the higher level content in Final Fantasy XIV is quite difficult. Now, Ashes of Creation plans to have 8-man groups and to be building their game on a server-wide community requiring many different people to fill different roles. I simply hope that they do not cater to people who might ask for an easier game or to be able to solo certain content. I believe everything in the game outside of maybe just hunting some mobs out in the wild should require group dynamic in one way or another. Difficult content in dungeons that require a healer, a tank, and DPS create more fun engagements and more rewarding gameplay. You're allowed to do more in-depth dungeon mechanics by requiring that tanks position things in certain ways or taunt at the right time, like some of the early game trials, like Limitless Blue or Oct Alpha Amphitheater, on top of the fact that having extreme and savage versions of your content and upping the difficulty creates more longevity in your gameplay. So it's vitally important that Ashes of Creation keeps their game focused on group gameplay and community, and not toning down or easing up on any difficulty that they might have to cater to those in smaller groups or trying it solo. Number 2. Incentives to do lower level content. Nothing can suck the life out of an MMO more than lower level zones being barren wastelands. Early on after a game's launch, every zone is filled to the brim with players. But as you progress towards the end game, it becomes more and more empty when you start a new character or if you're a new player to the game. This can make the world feel dead and barren, given that the developers designed all the locations to have players in them. Not to mention that having someone help you with lower level content that you're struggling to get to can seem like charity. Final Fantasy does a wonderful job incentivizing you to do lower level content with other players. They do this through their various duty roulette systems, their Wondrous Tales system, the challenge log, and the fact that they have some higher level gear purchased with the same currency as their mid-range gear with their tomestones. This gives higher level players a reason to do lower level content because they get the same rewards regardless, and they can gain more of those rewards doing a dungeon or a trial for the first time with someone new. Not only does this build a better MMO community, but it keeps the whole world feeling lively even through the lower level zones, so that you come across more and more players as the game grows in age. I actually believe systems like this is the very reason a 10-year-old game like Final Fantasy XIV can still live off of a subscription model and dominate almost every other game with their player base. It's incredibly important for Ashes of Creation to create a system where high level players have incentives to help lower level players and it not feel like charity. Number 3. Social and roleplay aspects of the game. Coming from somebody who does little to no roleplaying at all, it's still incredibly important inside of an MMO to make you feel like the world is alive. Final Fantasy does this very well through various aspects, like requiring you to do emotes during quests, or type phrases and sentences into chat to have NPCs respond to you. It's a very minor detail and probably annoys some people every now and then. However, it makes it feel as if your words and actions have some weight inside the game world. Final Fantasy also does very small details, like your character moving his weapon to the offhand as he summons his mount, or the simple fact that when you move inside of a town from a low population area to a high population area, that idle chatter increases, making it seem as if people around you are talking. They also do this in combat areas, making it seem as if you are in a war zone when a lot of players are around. But most importantly, Final Fantasy XIV includes a system that is incredibly rare to find inside of any game, by allowing you to shift your visor on certain helmets up and down or off your character entirely. This ranges from goggles moving up and sliding on your head to plate helmets sliding their entire visor out of the way. This feature, although small, is vitally important to me, and I'm sure many of you, when choosing a helmet or piece of clothing you'll wear, by giving it multiple options or forms and allowing it to change on the spot. Now I will say, Final Fantasy has still not done the one thing that I've hoped for in a game since I can remember, and allowing me to take a robe and pull the hood up and down on command. I'm looking at you, Star Wars. Jedis have done it in every movie. Number 4. Retainers and Squadrons. Final Fantasy XIV took the basic banking system and allowed you to customize a retainer to be able to hold your items, your money, and sell your various belongings. Ashes of Creation seems to be planning a standard banking system and a market system inside their various nodes. What I do hope is that they allow you to have some influence and effect on maybe what those market stalls look like or what your particular merchant might be designed like or wearing. That way you feel more attached and like you had input into who is selling your stuff, your gear, your belongings, or that you had some touch and effect inside the town. Final Fantasy XIV also allowed you to send your retainers out on ventures, which ties directly into the squadron system, being placed in charge of a unit of troops and putting them out on missions to get various rewards allows you to feel as if you are actually moving up in the world. You're no longer the lowly grunt that you were early on, but you are actually now commanding a squadron. It also brings some real-time strategy aspects into the game for people who enjoy that. I hope Ash's Creation has some form of systems in place, whether it's for the banking or market stalls or the entire squadron system, allowing me to control NPC units outside of combat. Gives you a micromanagement system that feels like you might be running a business or running a mercenary group that adds more quality of life to the non-combat parts of the game. Final Fantasy XIV does, however, allow you to take squadrons into some dungeons. Although a system like this can make the game seem too easy, like Star Wars The Old Republic did with companions, Final Fantasy XIV allows you to only do it into particular dungeons, still creating the need to group up and use the community, which, as I pointed out earlier, requiring community and difficulty in dungeons is vitally important. Number 5. Crafting and gathering abilities. It's that simple. I hope Ashes of Creation gives us a more in-depth crafting system than just clicking a single button. Whether it's as in-depth as Vanguard used to be, or if they go slightly more simplistic like Final Fantasy XIV. I want to see something more interesting, more intricate, and with a higher skill level than your standard games crafting system. The drawback to this system is that you have to make crafting more worthwhile if it's going to have a difficult learning curve, meaning you have to make crafted equipment more valuable and more worth your time in order to add a more intricate crafting system. Ashes of Creation plans to add some interesting systems like their animal husbandry system, but I do hope it does not stay confined to that one system and they allow creating unique items and perhaps mixing of materials, designs, and styles through the crafting system in the other professions. Well, guys, there you go. 5 things I really hope that Ashes of Creation takes note of from Final Fantasy XIV. Thanks for watching. See you next time.